Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a new episode. Today, I want to speak about 51% attacks and how this particular boogeyman of decentralized, permissionless blockchains is actually a good indication if a particular blockchain can be vulnerable to them. If you're wondering why that is, keep watching because I'm going to get into it. Okay, so I was definitely inspired to make this video because I came across a really interesting Reddit post pretty much asking or suggesting one way that a blockchain could get around having a 51% attack happen on that blockchain and their idea was to cap the mining power of any one entity to only 25%, which theoretically, if that was the only way a 51% attack could happen, that could be done, but it does not take away the threat of people working together. And of course, that's all that would need to happen. So this post was also commented on by a really well-respected Bitcoin Core developer named Gregory Maxwell. He was actually at one point the CTO of Blockstream, and that little fact is kind of ironic, especially once you look into this actual post. I will be providing a link to it down below in the video description. I definitely encourage you guys to read it and learn from Gregory Maxwell and his ideas about 51% attacks. If you don't read it, I'm going to be just very generally going over what he was saying and my thoughts on it. But he mentions centralized control, and actually Blockstream Liquid was one of those that he listed, which is why him being the CTO of Blockstream at one point is kind of funny. Here's a brief overview of what a 51% attack is, and as the name suggests, it has to do with having majority control over a blockchain, because as most blockchains are set up now, if you have enough computational power in the form of mining and hashing power, if you have enough of that, you are able to control the transactions on that blockchain. Now, for a blockchain like Bitcoin, a 51% attack is very expensive, and therefore if they do happen, they don't last for very long. But for smaller blockchains like, say, Ethereum Classic, which happened in the past, is they had a 51% attack and it allowed one entity or a group of people to control the blockchain and potentially disrupt how the transactions are being broadcast or change the transaction history. If they had enough computational power and they had control for a long enough time, they could possibly do that. So it has to do with 51% attacks. The reason why I'm calling them a good indication if a blockchain is potentially vulnerable to them is that speaks very highly to the state of decentralization and permissionless interaction with that blockchain. They surefire a way to completely ensure that a 51% attack can't happen, ironically, is to install a centralized control in some form or another that ultimately will control which transactions happen and in what order and how that is broadcast to the entire network. Ironically, the only way to prevent a 51% attack is ultimately to do the 51% attack and to have majority control over the network, and essentially renders that blockchain, not decentralized and not permissionless. So it's kind of ironic there with 51% attacks and how you can prevent them. Again, Gregory Maxwell, he references to many instances where different blockchains or projects have tried to come up with solutions for 51% attacks and claiming to be decentralized solutions for them, but he says that they're often veiled or hidden and they really are just centralized control trying to be played off as a decentralized perfect solution for 51% attacks, which is really interesting. And if that's a rabbit hole you guys want to go down, it's definitely worth learning about, especially going forward when more and more people are going to be pouring into this space and they're not going to recognize the gold that decentralization is essentially for this space and the kind of strength and security that can ultimately afford a blockchain down the road. Now, we're seeing time and again how different platforms, whether it be blockchains or exchanges, if they are at all organized in a centralized way that can weaken it to have to succumb to the whims of things like governments, but it's certainly not limited to that. It can be, they can become vulnerable to anyone who has the ability to exploit that centralization. And yeah, it's a point of failure for sure. It's a bottleneck, all of those things, and they're not good. As the space continues to progress and expand and more people are introduced to it, they're not going to have that laser eye or the ability to decipher the strength of decentralization, because what we're often seeing with centralized entities, yes, they work faster, they may be more efficient, but they're not stronger in the long run, and they probably won't be as robust and formidable in the long run. So that is definitely a main motivating factor for me continuing to put out videos like this, is to remind you of the strength of decentralization and to encourage you to continue to pursue that in your own life, in the things that you invest in the platforms that you use in this space, whether it be wallets or exchanges or anything really. Just search for decentralization, because these platforms that are trying to come off as decentralized, like we're seeing all these fake decentralized exchanges, for example, trying to capitalize on that hot topic word of decentralization, or DEXs in that particular case, because they aren't truly decentralized, because it is just a facade. They are ultimately causing their users to pay the price, like Crypto Bridge, for example. I'm going to throw that one under the bus again. It was claiming to be a DEX, but then all of a sudden, of course, they are succumbing to KYC and AML practices, and instead of giving their users any kind of a heads up, they went ahead and made it mandatory from day one, no warning. It's not a good look. I'm just going to put it like that. So that unfortunately will probably continue to be a pattern here, and it's all the more reason for you to take some time, invest your energy, and learn about the platforms as best that you can, and be able to decipher decentralization, true decentralization, and centralization trying to be disguised as decentralization. Over time, it will ring true which ones are real and which ones are fake, but unfortunately, if you fall for it in the meantime, you could be the victim of some manipulation of some sort. And that was brought up again in that article, was that a lot of people are probably going to be victim of blockchains in a way that parade around as being decentralized and having this end-all be-all solution for 51% attacks, but ultimately in one way or another they have some kind of centralized control over the blockchain, and in that way they are preventing outside 51% attacks, sure, but kind of they are doing the 51% attack, maybe not directly through the hashing power, but indirectly in some kind of controlling manner. And centralization always leads to this need of trust, underlying trust, which is something that I think is going to be not needed with a truly decentralized system. It's fair, it is honest, and you don't have to worry about one person having your best interests in mind instead, because most likely, of course, they're going to be looking out for number one, which in that case would be them and not you. So that's just a little perspective twist I think is important to have, and a little reality check maybe about 51% attacks, and how if a blockchain is vulnerable to them, it also speaks volumes as to the decentralization aspect to that blockchain and the permissionless aspect of that blockchain. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. In the meantime, I will be seeing you soon. Check out your comments down below. Happy to see those. Don't forget to leave a like and hit subscribe so you can get more videos like this coming to you. I'll see you later.